Okay, I have a feeling we are live, everybody. How's it going? Chuck Holton here, coming to you from my daughter's house in North Carolina. We're here for Thanksgiving, and I hope you are going to see your loved ones for Thanksgiving as well. I want to talk about the truce that has been imposed on Israel by the United States. And first thing, I have to just reiterate what you're seeing is not a ceasefire. Everybody's calling it a ceasefire. CNN is calling it a ceasefire. Fox News is calling it a ceasefire. Everyone's calling it a ceasefire. But a ceasefire is an agreement between the two belligerent parties to stop the fighting indefinitely. This is not that because it literally was an agreement that the United States made with Israel and the Lebanese government. And commented on this particular ceasefire because it's not a ceasefire. Whoop. Okay, my internet went out for a second. Hopefully it didn't go out for you guys. This truce, 60-day truce, again, is an imposed order by the United States on Israel. And Hezbollah, the only thing that Hezbollah has said about it, and I'm going to go and I'm going to read it to you. Let's see if I can get there. I'm going to read you what Hezbollah said about this, according to the New York Times. Okay, this is all that Hezbollah has said. Let's see if I can get. I got to find it here. Just a second. Just a second. Hezbollah, at first, and all along, they've been saying that they're not going to stop fighting Israel until there's a ceasefire in Gaza. Well, there's not a ceasefire in Gaza right now. So why is this being called a ceasefire with Hezbollah with okay, so it's a 60-day truce. Where did I see that? Hezbollah still has thousands of fighters across Lebanon. They are now flooding back into the southern part of Lebanon, and they're even waving Hezbollah flags. I'll show you that in just a second. No, I'll tell you what, I'll show you that right now. Uh, let's see here. This is Hezbollah celebrating their quote unquote victory over Israel as they flood back into the southern part of the country. Now, the only thing that they've said so far concerning this, this is according to the New York Times, is Hezbollah, which is not a formal party to the agreement and has addressed peace negotiations through an intermediary, did not immediately comment on it on Tuesday. That's it. So they have said in the past, in the recent past, that if Israel would agree to a some sort of deal where Israel would stop shooting, that Hezbollah would honor that as long as Israel uh, left Lebanon. Well, Israel has not left Lebanon yet. They're supposed to leave over the next 60 days. They're telling people not to enter the areas along the southern border, but people are still doing so. And they've had at least 4 instances that have been recorded so far of uh, times when the IDF has actually fired warning shots at people because they were getting too close to IDF tanks or troops. And so that their people are trying to flood back in there, and many of those people are Hezbollah. They're claiming to be. I'm not making this up. Hezbollah themselves is they're waving flags and they're saying that they won, okay? That this is a victory for them. Well, if this is victory, I'd hate to see what losing looks like. So again, you're hearing everybody call it a ceasefire, but it is not an actual ceasefire. This is the Biden administration's attempt to make it look like they accomplished something in this conflict, but they haven't. I mean, the only thing they've done is they've been able to impose their will on the Israelis, and the Israelis are going along with it, hoping that Hezbollah will go along with it too. But if history is any judge, they don't have much hope because Hezbollah has never lived up to any of the ceasefire agreements that they have made. And that's when they actually made agreements. In this case, they weren't party to this agreement. And the Lebanese government, the Lebanese army, we know about half of those guys are Hezbollah themselves, or at least have family who are Hezbollah. And those guys are the ones who are supposed to uh, enforce this along with UNIFIL, both of whom were supposed to enforce it the last time and didn't. So, look, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that, I mean, what we're seeing here is Hezbollah has been hurt so badly that they need some time to lick their wounds. They don't have any leadership to speak of. They don't have any communications to speak of. They have lost the majority of their weaponry. Just last night, the IDF, right before the agreement took effect at 4 a.m., because a couple hours before that, the IAF launched raids on or airstrikes on a command center that belonged to the unit of Hezbollah that was responsible for bringing in uh, weaponry from Iran. And they were also responsible for the drone strikes on Israel. Well, apparently, in these strikes that the IAF made, they took out about 75%, they believe, of all of the uh, uh, drones, suicide drones, that Hezbollah had left with which to strike Israel. And so Hezbollah has lost so much that they do want Israel to stop shooting at them. That is not exactly a ceasefire. Hezbollah was even saying just 48 hours ago that they wouldn't accept any ceasefire and they were going to continue in their mission to attack Israel until the war in Gaza is over. Well, the nice thing about this is, and here's where the information war comes in. Okay, the United States and uh, media and everything, obviously everybody's calling it a ceasefire. And even the New York Times, in their most recent article, is calling it a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah. But Hezbollah, it says in the very article further down that Hezbollah hasn't actually commented on it. This is being imposed on them. Well, what they're hoping is that if they can get the word out that there's a ceasefire in the north, that it will encourage Hamas to consider a ceasefire as well. And that may actually be working because I just saw a few minutes ago that Hamas was saying they would be open to talks as well. The thing is, Hamas has to release the hostages. They're not going to get anything until they release those hostages. So is this holding? So far, yes. So far, Hezbollah has not actually fired on that we know of, uh, anybody in Israel, although there was a drone incursion just a few moments ago into the Galilee, but the news that I saw about it did not say if that incursion was from Lebanon or if it was from Syria, because um, this agreement only applies to the conflict between Israel and Lebanon. Or it's not actually with Lebanon, it's with Hezbollah in Lebanon. But that doesn't mean anything about the conflict that is going on between the Hashishabi in Iraq and Syria. Those are Iranian backed militias. They are still, I mean, there's no agreement at all there. So it's likely that they will continue to fire drones and missiles and stuff, which have been sparse, nothing like the ones coming from Lebanon. Uh, on top of that, the Houthis are still firing, and there's still fighting going on in uh, Gaza, of course, and then in the West Bank or Judea and Samaria. Just today, they discovered a very large shipment of weapons, including Claymore mines. Now, Claymore mines are anti personnel mines. These are not landmines like the kind that you would step on. Claymore mine is an anti personnel mine that is okay, so it's about this big. It's about 8 inches wide and about 6 inches high, and it's got 740 small steel balls embedded in a plastic matrix that is concave or convex, I guess, that's backed by a pound and a half of C4 plastic explosive. And it is detonated with a detonator, a blasting cap that goes in the top of the mine, and it's set up on little bipod legs and then pointed in a certain direction. It says front toward enemy on the on that. Okay, so those kinds of things. I mean, the amount of destruction that they could wreak and havoc that they could wreak on uh, human beings is really horrific. And if they put those on the side of a road, or they strap them to things and vehicles and all kinds of things. I don't want to give anybody ideas, but the bottom line is they can cause a lot of damage. And they found a bunch of those along with explosives and vests and sniper rifles and RPGs and grenades and all sorts of things that were being smuggled through Jordan into Judea and Samaria, and they caught those just today. So Iran is still very heavily trying to influence this, trying to start up more fighting with Israel, and Israel is doing a pretty good job at taking them out. But what's concerning about all that is that if they're capturing a shipment of arms like that, it's likely that there are several more that they did not capture. And I mean, that's just the way this works. So it's likely that there are weapons like this getting into the West Bank. We already know that there is a ton of weaponry that's already in Judea and Samaria in the Palestinian areas there. And so that is definitely something that Israel is nowhere near done with. Okay. So Joe Byers had a question. Hey, Chuck, if Hezbollah were estimated at the beginning of the conflict to be 120,000 strong, you said IDF has eliminated only 3,700. I don't understand how that is knocking them out. Please explain. So that 3,700 are the number that were killed. There are many more than that who've been wounded, probably tens of thousands who've been wounded. But more important than that, there are plenty of those troops who are not really keen to be Hezbollah fighters anymore. They don't really want to be, uh, and what they've done is they've fled to Syria and then fled north to the northern part of Lebanon. A lot of these guys moonlighted as Hezbollah. They weren't, paid uniformed troops. They're ad hoc almost. And so what that means is they could very well today have been, or yesterday have been Hezbollah fighters. Today they're plumbers and, working at a restaurant or something like that. And tomorrow they can be Hezbollah fighters again. That's why it is concerning that there are all these tens of thousands of people flooding back into southern Lebanon now, and Israel's trying to hold them off of the actual border area, but they're still coming in, and they're taking down Israeli flags, and they are shooting guns in the air and celebrating. I saw one video today where there's a whole bunch of guys on motorcycles and they're all shooting their weapons in the air to celebrate their victory over Israel, even though everything around them looks like Gaza. It's just flattened. And one of the guys riding on the back of the motorcycle with his buddy is shooting his pistol just like this, looks away and shoots his buddy right in the back of the head, the guy driving the motorcycle, and then the motorcycle just kind of you bonk and falls over. Stupid is as stupid does, I guess. And so obviously this is a real question. What happens to all those guys who were counted as Hezbollah fighters who then ran away and are now no longer Hezbollah fighters? That's a problem. Um, so they did definitely take out the top 25 or so leaders in Hezbollah. That's going to slow them down a bit. They can replace those guys, but it's going to take a while because the people who did the replacing also got taken out for the most part. So there's not a lot of people left with any authority to make those kinds of decisions. And a lot of the middle management were the ones who were wounded in the pager attack. And so those guys are, some of them have healed up and some of them have not, but they still have the problem with communications. They can't really communicate well with each other now. And they're essentially being told by Israel, if we see anything that looks like a threat, be that groups of military age males approaching the border, people with weapons walking around, any kind of training, anything that appears to be training, we reserve the right to strike at those things, even in the midst of this truce. So Patrick Wickersheim asks, please define 60-day truce. 60-day truce is neither side will shoot at each other for 60 days. Again, Israel agreed to that. Hezbollah did not officially agree to that. Unofficially, Hezbollah said, well, if they come up with something, we will honor it as long as they leave Lebanon. But Israel hasn't left Lebanon yet. So we will see if or how long this actually holds. And, that's an open question at this point. Thank you, Diane. Very kind of you. Nice to see you tonight. Hope you're having a great Thanksgiving. Um, so, look, this is the exact same thing that has happened before over and over and over again. And that's why it's not out of the ordinary to be skeptical of this time. So, uh, keep in mind, just remember, this truce that Hezbollah did not agree to only is supposed to include Lebanon, I'm sorry, Israel and Hezbollah. And it's supposed to be overseen by the United States and the Lebanese military and the UNIFIL. The United States is really supposed to be a go-between. They're not actually going to have troops on the ground or anything like that. But again, attacks from Syria, drone attacks from Iraq, missiles and drones from Yemen, everything else, missiles out of Gaza. That still is on the table. That there's no agreement that has anything to do with anything other than Lebanon. So none of the hostages, they haven't even talked about hostages because there aren't any hostages in Lebanon. Okay. Now, Israel is, let's go talk about the International Criminal Court. Israel is going to appeal the arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. So we'll see what happens there. Several countries, including Germany and France, have come out and said, we are not going to enforce this if Netanyahu comes to visit us in France or Germany. We're not going to arrest them because they're not, Israel's not a signatory to this International Criminal Court, even though Germany and France are signatories to it. Okay. So they've just said, we're not going to they also recognize that this is kind of stupid. Uh, Now, this is a question being asked by Israel Real Time that I just wanted to put out there. Why would Jerusalem agree to put a halt to the war it was prosecuting so expertly, with only some of its objectives secured, and in response to security guarantees that look a lot like the failed architecture of the past? Senator Ted Cruz said Obama Biden officials pressured Israel into accepting this agreement by withholding weapons they needed to defend themselves and counter Hezbollah, and by threatening to facilitate a further broader binding international arms embargo through the United Nations. Netanyahu's aides confirmed that the outgoing administration threatened to embargo arms transfers while promising to stand aside while the United Nations Security Council passed resolutions compelling Israel to put a halt to the fighting, not just in Lebanon, but in Gaza too. That's from Ted Cruz, senator from Texas. Now, this we talked about this yesterday. It obviously the United States was exercising all of its power against Israel to try to get them to agree to this because it's not in Israel's best interests at the moment. Um, I mean, they had a chance to degrade Hezbollah even further. However, it does bear repeating that the Israeli parliament uh, had already given, I'm sorry, the IDF had already told the Israeli government that they were at a good stopping point in Lebanon if they wanted to start negotiating a ceasefire. So while I believe every word of what Ted Cruz is saying, that the United States was threatening to withhold weapons and threatening to not exercise its veto power over anything the ICC or the United Nations would come up with to force Israel to try to stop the war. I do believe that, but I also believe that Israel took a look at the pros and cons of this and decided that for the moment, as long as they retain the right to strike anything they see as a threat inside Lebanon, it's not that much of a you know handcuffs on the IDF for them to do that, and it frees up the IDF to send some of their troops to take some rest and to focus more on Iran and finishing up in Gaza. The IDF has arrested 4 suspects, including a Hezbollah commander, who were already trying to make their way up to the border fence. So, again, Hezbollah hasn't agreed to this. So, why wouldn't a Hezbollah commander come back in there if he thought Israel wasn't going to shoot at him? The prime minister and the defense minister instructed the IDF not to allow the Lebanese population to get close to the border in southern Lebanon, uh, in accordance with the first phase of implementing this outline of the truce. Uh, the first phase is Israel starting to pull out of southern Lebanon, but they have 60 days to do that, so they're not going to do it right away. All right. Oh, thank you, Diane. I appreciate that. I'll talk about that more in a minute. Al Jazeera reporter was forced to end his broadcast in southern Lebanon after the IDF fired warning shots at him. Okay. Uh, when you say Al Jazeera and reporter in the same sentence, it kind of makes me giggle because those guys are just Hamas operatives at this point. Uh, there's no question about that. The IDF spokesman said to the Lebanese citizens, for your safety and the safety of your family, you're prohibited from moving south toward the villages. And the IDF uh, has asked you to continue to stay evacuated, basically. And there's an absolute prohibition for anyone to move south of the Litani River. A Hezbollah operative claiming to be a photographer got shot in the leg this morning while trying to take pictures of an Israeli position. They shot the guy. Um, Israel does not intend to reduce its forces in Lebanon and has decided that all the forces that are currently inside Lebanon will remain there and there will be no transfer of forces to Gaza or withdrawal of forces for now. Also, the home defense people have said they do not want Israelis to return to their homes in the north just yet. They're not going to restart school up there. They're not going to allow people to go back up to their homes because they want to kind of wait a few days and see if this thing holds. And I think that's a reasonable thing to do, even though the some people were in Israel were saying that they should let the residents of the northern part of Israel go back to their homes right away. The government decided against it, and IDF or IAF planes are continuing to fly over Lebanon, collecting intelligence and prepared to strike if necessary. Since the beginning of the ceasefire, I should put in quotes because it's not a ceasefire, um, 6 Hezbollah terrorists have been killed trying to infiltrate the area. And so, again, this Hezbollah did not agree to this agreement. The only agreement is between the United States, the Lebanese army, and Israel. And, the United States is paying the Lebanese army to go along with this, by the way. But the U.S. offered, I think it was something like $800 million in extra military hardware and ammunition and money to the Lebanese military if they would go along with this. Now, think about this. You're a Hezbollah operative that also happens to be a Lebanese soldier, because again, about half those guys are. And they come to you and they say, I mean, you know what a bad state your organization is in because you can't get a hold of anybody. You have no idea what's going on. You're not really sure if or where any of the weaponry is still, uh, functional. And so they come and they say, hey, the United States is going to pay you guys millions of dollars to put on your Lebanese army uniforms and go back into southern Lebanon and check things out and make sure that those Israelis leave. Well, of course you're going to do that. And they've promised, the Israelis promised they won't shoot at you as long as you're wearing a Lebanese army uniform. Why wouldn't these Hezbollah guys do that? And if history is any judge, the Lebanese army would not even say anything if Hezbollah was accompanying them in there. They're not going to do anything about it because they're on the side of Hezbollah. We know that UNIFIL is not going to do anything about it either because they also have proven to be on the side of Hezbollah, or at least have been ambivalent and enough to let Hezbollah do whatever they wanted to do within sight of UNIFIL bases. Column Chop says, is it likely that Iran has a grip on Lebanon that will make it difficult for the Lebanese army to take their country back? Well, up until the beginning of this war, Hezbollah was, of course, a puppet of Iran, and it was more powerful than the Lebanese military. They may have some sort of parity now between Hezbollah and the Lebanese military, maybe not quite, but um, the Lebanese military gets, like I said, $300 million a year from the United States in the form of military equipment and weaponry and training and things like that. And we've just agreed to give them even more if they will pretend to enforce this non-ceasefire. And mark my words, folks, this is the thing. It's frustrating because a lot of the outlets that I follow, that I respect very highly, that normally do a lot of research and get this stuff right, are getting this one wrong. They are calling this a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel, and it's not. Hezbollah has not formally agreed to anything. There's no, and part of that is maybe perhaps because there's nobody to agree to it because they've all been knocked off. But there's this agreement is between Israel and the army of Lebanon, which is a different thing. Okay. Now let's see here. Where are you all coming in from? I saw Tennessee. Uh, yes, we are rearming the Lebanese military. That's correct. Well, the Lebanese military is not Hezbollah. Those two things are not the same. They are. There's a lot of overlap. It's like if you took a piece of bread and put butter on it, and then took some margarine and put margarine on it. Okay, butter and margarine together. That's the Lebanese army and Hezbollah. Now try to separate those two things. It's not going to be possible. So it will be interesting to see what Donald Trump does with this. Obviously, he's going to be uh, much more lenient with Israel, allowing Israel to run, have all the room they need to actually finish this thing. And in so doing, the war will get over much quicker. There's no question about that. Uh, Now, I wanted to point out something that Hanyana Naftali said because he makes a very good point. He said his ceasefires are not a gift of peace; they're a pause in the war. Hezbollah doesn't understand diplomacy. The only thing they understand is dominance or the projection of power. Israel has done a great job at projecting its power into Lebanon, and that's why Hezbollah is probably likely to go along with this, even though they haven't formally agreed to it. But as Hanyana Naftali says, evil does not compromise. So the sad thing is, there are tons of people in Lebanon that just don't want Hezbollah there. They understand that Hezbollah has not been good for their country. There's been a lot of stuff on social media of people just brutally mocking Hezbollah, taking images of their flag and putting a little white flag instead of a weapon on their flag, stuff like that. But and there's also been some video proof of villages that are like Maronite Christian or Druze villages in the southern part of Lebanon, not allowing Hezbollah operatives into their village, kicking them out as they try to come through, because they don't want their village to get destroyed like the villages where Hezbollah was active. And most of the villages now that are close to the border with Israel are just rubble. There's not much left. But uh, the villages that are further away, they probably sustain some damage, but they're not completely wrecked like the ones that are right along the border. And Israel is just flying their drones over those and watching and waiting to see what happens. Okay. Waiting to see if this is going to turn into a ceasefire. And it could. This could turn into a ceasefire. But it hasn't, it's not a ceasefire yet. Uh, I'm just looking here at some news from Syria. It looks like there's a lot of fighting going on between the Turks and the Kurds in northern Syria. And some of the towns that I've been to, like Menbij, um, are very well embroiled in the fighting there now. So I'm just wondering how that will affect this. Interesting. Well, folks, I wanted to just say, while I have you, please go hit the like button real quick. And while you're doing that, let me tell you about chuckholton.com. I've been posting quite a bit over there, and we've got some stuff coming. We are this close to releasing our coffee table book. This is going to be like a 40 page, 44-page book, something like that, of photographs that I took over the past 12 months or so. We go back a little bit further than that because we actually start the book at the beginning of the war in Israel. And so uh, what we did is we collected up all the best photographs that I've taken since the war started, not just in Israel, but everywhere else I've gone, Armenia, Colombia, Burma, you name it, and Jordan and everything. And we put together a beautiful coffee table book. The people that have seen it have called it stunning. And it's going to be available to supporters on chuckholton.com as a download for free. So you can go look at it and download it if you want to just read the book, because I've got little anecdotes and stories about things that happened over the course of the last year, people that you all have helped. We've got a couple pages, I think, of photographs of all the people that, not all actually, just some of the people that we've been able to help this year around the world with your assistance. So all of your generosity, like Diane Britson there, has helped us to really bring hope to a ton of people around the globe. So we've got a couple pages of their pictures, and it's a great Christmas gift, stocking stuffer for anybody that is into the geopolitics thing, or has been into watching this show. We will probably do this every year. But we thought about coming out with a calendar, but me and a speedo, it just doesn't quite work, So instead, we just put together a bunch of pictures I took of other people, and you're gonna love it. Yeah. So we are going to be putting the link to that up very shortly. I think maybe tomorrow is the idea, and then you'll be able to order it and get hard copies if you want by Christmas. And that was the idea behind this. So it'll be available, like I said, as a free download to all the supporters on on Locals, and anybody that wants a hard copy can go and click the link and go purchase it and get it hopefully by Christmas. Okay, so I'll encourage you to be looking for that. I am going to go to CrossFit with my daughter now, so I'm going to be done uh, with this, even though we're a little early. We haven't gone the full hour today, but 40 minutes is close enough. So if I just want to check and see if there's any other questions that have been asked, because I hate to miss questions. No banana hammocks. You guys don't. Okay, see, there we go. Um, Timothy Wall says, if I was a betting man, I'd wager activity would start up before the end of the year. Uh, well, let's see what happens. Yeah, please do hit the like button. It really does help. Um, a non-woke calendar. You can believe anything that I'm going to do is not going to be woke. Um, all right. So will the coffee table be on Amazon? I think it will be on Amazon. There will be a link to it where you can go and purchase it. It's going to have an ISBN number and everything. So, I mean, it'll be an actual book. But we're going through this website called Blurb, and I'm not actually the one doing it. So we've got one of our employees that's putting it all together. I wrote the text for the book and helped choosing the photographs, but you're going to love it. The people who've seen it have said it's just spectacular, and I like it. I mean, of course, I think it's pretty cool too. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving tomorrow. I'm not going to be on live tomorrow unless we have some major breaking news or something like that. So let's hope for a quiet day with family tomorrow. Go out and play some football with the kids, watch some TV, and stuff yourself silly. So, for those of you who do not live in the United States and don't have Thanksgiving to celebrate, I'm sorry, because that's one of the best holidays on planet Earth. And there's nothing that says you can't join us, even if you're in South Africa or, God forbid, Canada or someplace like that. I'm joking. I just Canada, don't get your undies in a wad. But and you do have your own Thanksgiving in October. They just outdid us by doing it first. Uh, and uh, but wherever you are, be thankful for what you have. And the best thing you can do to be happy is to lead other people to how to be to being happy. Make other people happy, and that will make you happy. So I hope you have a great holiday. God bless you. And oh, I just saw this question, Dixie May. Is anything going to be done about UNRWA? Yeah, well, they have prohibited UNRWA in Israel, including the West Bank and Gaza. So UNRWA is not uh, operating, in my understanding, anymore in those areas. And we'll see what happens with that. But that's part of why they are, you know, uh, the why the UN is so upset about this. Not that they hate Israel any more than they already did. Nothing else to lose says, why don't the Christians in Lebanon join forces with the IDF and kick Islam out of Lebanon? Well, this is their opportunity to do so. And there are some people in Lebanon who are talking about doing just that. So we'll just have to see if they have the stones to do it. And with that, I bid you a fair, good night. God bless you. We'll see you later.